the GMB union in Scotland, who have withdrawn from Scotland's proposed National Care Service plan. It's a plan that's been in place. It's been in the works since 2021, but in the last couple of days, 79% of care workers balloted by the union voted in favour of leaving the project altogether, which has been hindered by delays. There's been rising costs over the years that they've been discussing it. It was originally pitched as the biggest public service reform in Scotland since devolution. However, since December, when Scotland's Minister for Social Care, Marie Todd, announced that there were no plans for implementation of the project until 2028 to 2029, there are a number of different concerns and criticisms of the plan that have come about. So on their reasons for withdrawing their support, GMB Scotland's senior organiser, Keir Greenaway, said that it looks like this national care plan will just be an added layer of bureaucracy. It won't change the terms and conditions our members need. Einstein's definition of madness is doing the same thing and expecting different results. We've spent a long time trying to get the National Care Service into a position where we can make the vital changes needed, but that is not forthcoming from the Scottish Government. Now, Wheelie, this certainly isn't the first time a government's proposed social care reforms have been criticised in recent times. I know shortly after the election, I think it's towards the end of July, the Nuffield Trust published a piece around trying to track what had happened to the funding that had been earmarked for social care reforms in the UK. I think they found that basically almost all of the 5.3 billion that had been assigned for this social care reform back in 2021 has largely now already been used to fund what's called like existing system delivery. I know this is an area that's really close to your heart. What are your kind of feelings around this at the moment? What are you concerned by?
The biggest thing for me, as far as a National Health Service goes, I mean, I'm part of an organisation called End Social Care Disgrace. So we're a sister organisation to Keep Our NHS Public, which many people will have heard of. And we campaign for a national care support and independent living service. And one of our 8 demands, if you like, is including the £15 an hour wage, which is one of the major reasons why the GMB have pulled out, because they're saying that they can't guarantee that. As far as money that's gone into the care sector, the problem with the money that's going into the care sector is it's going into the private sector, and the profits are being used outside of this country. 85% of the social care sector is privately owned, majorly by 4 big venture capitalists. So we don't really need to say much more about that, other than the fact that they bring staff in on 0 hours contracts, get the 10 up to work and they're sent home, and obviously we're going to touch also on the foreign workers, the migrant workers that have come into the care system, and the ones that are no longer coming into the care system. But I mean, we've got 8 demands, and it's, the government should have responsibility for duty to provide a national care support and independent living service. It needs to be free at the point of need and fully available to everyone living in the country, publicly provided and publicly accountable, mandated nationally and delivered locally. Councils still fund social care from central government, but that money is, as we say, going into the private sector, not being managed nationally. We also need to identify and address the needs of informal carers, family and friends providing personal support, which they save the country 162 billion a year. Families who are supporting children and other family members, friends who are supporting the same, and what have you. It needs to be radically reimagined and co-produced with disabled people, carers, sector workers and local communities. The standard disabled people's organisation is nothing about us without us, and it offers choice, control and dignity. But which is what the GMB were aiming for with the National Care Service in Scotland, which obviously that's just been pushed to a side now because they've pulled out of it. But I can understand why they've pulled out of it. And then we need a national employee strategy that's fit for purpose, and standards for independent and supported living underpinned by care and support of personal assistants, career structures, qualifications with pay and conditions to reflect skills required to provide support services worthy of a decent society. Support the formation of a task force of independent and supported living with a meaningful influence led by user control groups, i.e. from all demographic backgrounds, disabled people, carers, care and support workers, and all you sort of, I'm trying to think of the word, it won't come to me anyway. And care and support workers should be paid an absolute minimum of £15 an hour. And that includes sleeping shifts, travel time. A lot of your domiciliary care don't get paid travel time. And a lot of them don't get paid the right amount of fuel costs either. They all have, the night carers get paid very little for sleeping in shifts. They're not paid like the full price for sleeping in. And they should have sick pay and holiday pay and shared union recognition and, you know, training and career structure. And then obviously the exploitation of workers from overseas has got to end. It's just, there's 1 in 5 care workers from overseas reporting modern slavery at the moment, and that's just horrendous.
I think that, yeah, I mean, first up, can people give some claps and some likes for Wheelie here? Because I don't know if it's happening already on the YouTube, but that, like, all of that information, so much of the work that you do and the information that you give is so important for this. And the whole thing of nothing about us without us, it feels like it's something that needs to apply in every single area. And more it feels like the power and the voices that we have are being consolidated within a very specific group of people. It feels like it should be obvious at this point, but it's not. So yes, I do want to go into that next topic on something else that we have seen, which Willie has just touched on, which is in recent months, there's been a 6-fold increase in foreign national workers in the care sector reporting concerns of exploitation by providers. So earlier in August, it was covered in The Guardian that the number of social care workers reporting that they are trapped in exploitative contracts has risen to something like 6 times the amount of what it was 3 years ago. So I think in these situations, the RCN have been tracking cases of workers who are trying to leave their jobs only to be told by their employers that they owe thousands of pounds in repayments, or things like what the employer calls like a hiring cost. This was all reported in the Royal College of Nursing, but there's a whole load of different examples of it. People saying that they've been harassed, they've been bullied, they've tried to leave a role and then been told that they owe all of this money, and it's kind of put forward as costs for visa processing. But it's absolutely horrendous. Like, it's unbelievable that this is something that people are able to get away with, especially in a sector where you do rely so much on people's personal investment and support, because people aren't given the kinds of support that they would if they were in like a typical office job or a day job. Rachel, I feel like this is one of those things where if this isn't a case for the idea that none of us are free unless all of us are free, I don't know what is. It feels like it's so insidious at this point.
It is, because they're treated so unfairly. They pay to come into the country to start off with. They're then obviously subject to the NHS visa. They're subject to the visa every year as well, the regular visa every year. So they're obviously paying extra to come here anyway and to stay here. And if their partners and their dependents don't earn a certain amount of money thanks to a certain Mr. James not so cleverly, then they're not coming either. But I think the main thing is that you know, they are having to pay all this extra money. Many of them are on 0 hours contracts. They're also not on the same pay as their colleagues. The British staff, for want of a better way of putting it. And when you think that the majority of the private sector, care sector, are on minimum wage, then we're actually asking these people to work for less than minimum wage as well. And they're also coming from highly deprived countries that you would think were, well, red list countries in comparison to this country. So we're kind of taking workers from these countries like the Philippines and Nigeria and certain places, certain parts of India as well, that, you know, could do with those healthcare workers themselves, and we're taking them, and then we're bringing them here and treating them despicably. I mean, it's the bullying and some of the allegations, and you know, to pay £10,000 because you want to leave because people have been awful to you. And there's also another thing that a lot of people aren't aware of. If they come here for 3 months and they don't secure another role within those 3 months, they're automatically deported.
Patreon.com/turnleftmedia. Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you, Turn Left.